So, what if I told you that some of the most essential pieces of software you use every single day, I mean, the programming languages, the frameworks, the apps that literally built our digital world, all share a surprising single origin? Well, today we are cracking the code on a fascinating tech mystery: how one small Scandinavian country quietly became a global software superpower. Okay, let's just start with some of the absolute titans. Think about C Sharp, right? It's that powerhouse language from Microsoft that runs so much of the world's business software. Or how about TypeScript, the language that brought sanity and structure to giant JavaScript projects, something developers everywhere are thankful for. And then you've got the language that for years was basically the engine of the internet itself, PHP. I mean, from the early days of Facebook to the millions upon millions of websites built on WordPress, this thing has powered a massive chunk of the web as we know it. And what about building those websites faster than ever before? Well, that was the whole promise of Ruby on Rails. It was a framework that completely revolutionized how fast developers could work, and honestly, it changed the whole startup game back in the mid-2000s. But this goes way beyond just code. It's in the tools that completely transformed how we live our lives. You've got Skype, which, made free video calls across the planet a real thing for millions of people. And then there's Google Maps. Seriously, can you even remember how we got anywhere before it existed? And finally, let's talk about the invisible giant, the high-performance V8 JavaScript engine. It's the thing ticking away inside Google Chrome that makes the modern, super-fast, interactive web even possible. It is the engine under the hood of pretty much everything we do online. So you've got these powerhouse languages, a game-changing framework, apps that changed how we talk and travel, and the very engine of the web. It's an incredible list, right? So what's the one thing, the single thread that ties all of them together? The answer isn't Silicon Valley. It's not some single tech giant you're thinking of. The answer, which is pretty mind-blowing, is that every single one of those technologies has deep foundational roots in Denmark. A Dane was the lead architect, the creator, or a co-founder behind every last one. And just to put this in perspective, this insane global impact comes from a country with a population of just under 6 million people. That's smaller than a lot of big cities. So you have to ask, how on earth is that even possible? What's their secret? So how did this happen? Well, the answer isn't just one person or a single lucky break. It actually starts decades ago with a really unique philosophy that shaped how an entire nation thought about computers. It was an idea they called datalogi. Now, this one word might not seem like much, but it represents a huge shift in thinking. See, while a lot of the world was focused on the computer in computer science, the hardware, the machine itself, the Danes made a very deliberate choice to focus somewhere else. For them, the field was all about the data, its structure, how you handle it, and how to get it right. And this whole philosophy was really driven by this man, Peter Naur. He's pretty much considered one of the founding fathers of computer science in Denmark. And his core idea was simple, but at the time, totally revolutionary. The real challenge wasn't just making the machine work. It was about structuring the information, the data, in a clear and logical way. And his impact was just incredible. He didn't just have a cool theory, he built the institutions that would carry it into the future. He actually coined the term data-john. He helped found DIKU, which was Denmark's very first computer science department. And his work on the Algol 60 language was so important it earned him the Turing Award, which is basically the Nobel Prize of computing. Okay, so with that philosophical foundation locked in, a whole new wave of innovators started to pop up, and they began turning these big ideas into the world-changing tools we were just talking about. And you absolutely have to start with this guy, Anders Hejlsberg. For any developer who was coding in the 80s, 90s, or even the 2000s, this name is legendary. He is a true master craftsman of building tools for other builders. I mean, just look at this career path. It's stunning. He created Turbo Pascal, one of the most beloved development tools of the 1980s. Then he designed Delphi. He moves to Microsoft, becomes the lead architect of C Sharp, and then later helps create TypeScript. His entire career is the perfect example of that Danish focus on making practical, powerful tools that other developers actually want to use. And then you have Rasmus Lerdorf. So while Hejlsberg was building these really sophisticated tools for professional developers, Lerdorf created something that you could argue truly democratized the web for everyone. He put out the first version of PHP way back in 1995, and it just exploded. For decades, if you wanted to build a dynamic website, a blog, a forum, an early online store, the the chances were incredibly high that you were using the language created by this Danish-born programmer. And when you look at it like this, you can see this isn't about one single golden generation. This is a continuous rolling wave of innovation. It starts with Daiku and that core philosophy in 1970, flows through Hejlsberg in the 80s, Lordsorf in the 90s, David Hennemeyer Hansen with Rails in 2004, and Lars Bach with V8 in 2008. It's a sustained, multi-generational output of really foundational tech. But here's the thing. The Danish impact isn't just in programming languages. It's also deeply woven into the software that runs our businesses and, really, our daily lives online. So it turns out there was this whole parallel universe of Danish innovation happening in business software. Through the 80s and 90s, you had these two rival companies, Navision and Domgar Data, just battling it out, building world-class products. And after competing like crazy, they eventually merged and then were bought by Microsoft, becoming a cornerstone of their whole Microsoft Dynamics business suite. And the sheer breadth of this impact is just staggering. It isn't just business software. Skype, co-founded by a Dane, totally changed how the world communicates. The core technology behind Google Maps, that came from two Danish brothers. And Zendesk, now a global leader in customer service, was literally born in a Copenhagen loft. Okay, so we've seen all the evidence. We've seen the names, the companies, the technologies. The big question is still hanging there. Why? What is the secret sauce here? Well, it turns out you can actually break it all down into a pretty clear, repeatable playbook. So here it is. Here's the answer to the whole mystery. First, you start with those strong foundations, that datalogi philosophy. Then you have this relentless focus on the fundamentals, the core languages, the compilers, the engines. You add to that a cultural tendency towards pragmatism, simple, strong, clean design. You mix in that generational continuity we saw, so it's not just a fluke, and you top it all off with an ambition to build things that can reach the entire globe. That right there is the Danish playbook. You know, when you look at it all, the Danish story is this incredible model. It shows how a small country with a really clear philosophy can have this massive, world-shaping impact. It proves you don't have to be the biggest to be the most influential. And that really leaves us with a big question for the future. Which country, with which playbook, is going to define the next 50 years of software?